key language features. So like I said at the beginning, I think Tyger symbolises nature, and I think the reason why he spells it wrong, he has that Y, is to add some sort of exotic mystery to the tiger, and points to the fact that it's not just an ordinary tiger, it represents something else. We also have Imagery of Tools, and I think these are to symbolise the power and creativity of the Industrial Revolution. You have hammer, furnace, anvil, and chain. These are all tools associated with a blacksmith. A blacksmith is someone who makes things out of metal. But it's that repetition of the rhetorical question, what the, to me suggests that he's mocking mankind's machines. There simply isn't a tool to make a tiger, and if God did use a tool, what on earth would it look like? It's a reminder of God's incredible power. You've also got the personification of God with eyes, hands, shoulders, heart, hand, feet. All of these are together with the rhetorical questioning of what hand, what heart, what feet could create a tiger. And of course that's to remind us that it's unimaginable. I like the addition of wings. On what wings dare he aspire? This just again adds to that magicalness of God. You've got the repetition of the adjective dread, and that adjective there is to remind us that we should fear God. We should fear the power of God. You've also got the destructive imagery of burning and of fire, another reminder that God can both be a creator and a destroyer, and therefore again something extremely powerful, something to be feared. You've also got the metaphor of the tiger burning bright, which alludes to its strength, its glory, and also has those religious illusions of light and brightness. You've also got this very dark imagery, a metaphor of the tiger burning bright in the forests of the night, and I think that reflects the terrors and fears of the real world, the terrors of reality. That perhaps God has power over the evils of the world. And then that brings us to that word change in the final stanza, the verb dare, that reminds us that God is something to be feared. I think it's a reminder to the industrialists that sure, you can make stuff with hammers, anvils, chains and so on, but damn, look what God can do. He dares wrestle with fire and mystical tools to create something as dangerous and as beautiful as a tiger. In terms of themes, I think a big one is identity. Who are you compared to God? What is our relationship with God as well? It also links to the theme of violence, conflict. God can produce beautiful things out of his destructive power. It also links to the theme of faith. In this poem, we're reminded that God can do anything. It can also link to the theme of nature. God made nature, and nature is mysterious and powerful. And finally, it also links to the theme of personal experience. We have a very personal sense of the power of God here from the poet. The poem links pretty well with almost all of the other ones, but some that stand out. You can compare it with If. In If, the poet is telling you if you do this, you'll be a man. This poem just reminds us, no, God has control, not you. Also, La Belle Dame sans merci. John Keats was another romantic poet, and so we're dealing with mystical powers, the way that mystical power control who you are, what you do. You can compare it to My Last Duchess, particularly if you view My Last Duchess as a metaphor of the powers between the dominant capitalists and innocent and the innocent girl in that poem. You could compare it in the sense that this poem is also talking about the powers of industrialization not being as strong as God. You could also compare it with Blessing, as that's a poem about faith and the power in the spiritual. In this poem, the Tyger, the focus is on the power of nature via the Tyger. In Blessing, it's about the power and blessing of water. So, a final word about the reference to the Lamb. William Blake published a book called Songs of Innocence and Experience, with the subtitle showing the two contrary states of the human soul. It was a collection of poems where each poem had its opposite, to reveal the opposite nature to our souls, to ourselves, to the world. He also did all the illustrations for them. It's actually a really beautiful book. But the opposite poem to the Tyger is called The Lamb. Now, in Christian culture, the Lamb is a symbol for Jesus Christ, which is why in the end of the Tyger he asks, "Did he who made the Lamb make thee?" He obviously being God, and if God made something as beautiful and as delicate and as innocent as a lamb, how, in what way did God also make something as powerful and as dangerous as a tiger? And when we were looking at the structure of the Tyger, I pointed out how the poet had used trochaic tetrameter and the 6 quatrains to create this very rigid, dominant, powerful rhythm to the whole poem. When you compare it to the Lamb, he uses quite extraordinary rhythm, and it's completely opposite to the Tyger, and it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds really, really, really childish. See what you think. Even speaking it sounds silly. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Give thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead. Gave thee clothing of delight, softly clothing, woolly bright. You can see how the change in rhythms and structure creates a completely different effect. There's nothing powerful and dominant and destructive about this lamb. It almost has a kind of nursery rhyme rhythm to it. Anyway, I thought you'd find the contrast interesting, but it also acts as a very immediate reminder of the powerful effect different feet and measures in poems can affect the meaning.